Pokemon was one of the first games I ever played as a child, and a game that has been a reliable friend throughout my life. When I was a kid, I would play through Pokemon Blue obsessively in car trips to Michigan, building my teams, beating gym leaders, catching the legendary birds, tricking Masingo into duplicating my rare candies, and laughing as my juiced-up, overpowered monstrosities absolutely destroyed every trainer in their path. As I grew up, I learned more about my dueling pets, understanding stats, type matchups, move mechanics, and so much more. Instead of having a desire to break the games to make them easy, I started trying to make them harder, giving myself challenge runs to keep things interesting. I started not using items during battle, playing on set mode, giving myself single-type challenge runs, limiting my Pokemon Center heals, or having limited Pokemart trips. This was all fun, but I was still looking for more, a way to play through the games of my favorite franchise in a way that set up real stakes, forcing me to be truly creative in order to get through them. Enter the Nuzlocke Challenge. The Nuzlocke is a relatively simple challenge, but a pretty well-designed one. The basic Nuzlocke rules almost everyone plays by is number 1, you can only encounter the first Pokemon on each route, and number 2, if a Pokemon faints, it dies, and you have to either release it or put it in a death box for the rest of the run. When I first heard the rules for Nuzlocke, I found them pretty intimidating. I have Pokemon faint in my casual playthroughs all the time, after all. After trying it though, it's not nearly as bad as you might think. My first Nuzlocke was a Fire Red playthrough where I had Vaporeon, Arcanine, and Venusaur team up to destroy the game together. Since then, I've beaten Diamond, had an Alpha Sapphire Nuzlocke I'm particularly proud of, go deathless all the way up until Wallace, lost twice in Pokemon Platinum to Cyrus, and had some runs in Pokemon Black get all the way up to the Elite Four and the final Getsits fights before meeting their end. I've also beaten Pokemon X in a particularly bloody run that I'm proud of, where more than 20 Pokemon gave their life at various points to carry me through to the endgame. As fun as I find Nuzlockes, I also don't think they're perfect. For starters, I hate grinding my Pokemon. I'll usually fight all the trainer battles I can to level up for a big fight, but I would usually rather lose a run on a risky fight than I would rather spend the time grinding against wild Pokemon to ensure I can beat the fight without losses. This makes games with huge sudden level spikes with no good places to grind, like say the Elite Four in Heart of Gold or the Cyrus fight in Pokemon Platinum, incredibly frustrating for me. The second negative to a Nuzlocke is that one death can have a disproportionate cascading effect that can sometimes be a run killer, especially if you don't grind much, like I do. Pokemon teams are fragile, often relying on one specific team member to tank specific moves. This happened in my Bloody X run. Losing one Snorlax meant that I had nothing to switch into most special attackers, creating a cascade of deaths until I bit the bullet, grinded, and caught a Magnezone, which saved the run. Alternatively, not losing a Pokemon where you can have the opposite effect, making future battles easier and saving Pokemon there too. So now, after all of that, we finally get to Pokemon Sword. Sword and Shield have their problems, for sure. They weren't completed, the late-game storyline is an absolute mess. NPCs just teleport you around everywhere because they didn't finish all the cutscenes they were probably originally intending to put in the game. There's the Dexit fiasco, removal of Mega Evolutions and Z-Crystals, and, well, yeah, they're a mess. But in our case, they're a beautiful mess, and when I was playing through Sword the first time, all I could think was, with a few rule modifications, this game is absolutely perfect for a Nuzlocke. So why is that? Well, remember what I don't like about Nuzlockes? Well, the new experience share, which I hated and never used before Pokemon Sword, solved both my problems with most Nuzlockes. The experience share makes it easy to train up lower level Pokemon, while also making it easier to recover from deaths. The wild Pokemon in Sword are also at a reasonably higher level already, which encourages using newly found Pokemon in your party, and changing up your team frequently. So when I decided to start my Nuzlocke, I thought hard about the rules I would use for this run. A Nuzlocke is a single-player challenge, so I really encourage everyone to not feel constrained by feeling you need to use an official Nuzlocke rule set. There are no official Nuzlockes. Everyone uses their own rules, and that's great. Currently we have always catch the first Pokemon in each route, nickname each Pokemon for an emotional bond with it, and if a Pokemon faints, it dies. I also like to play with other rules to increase the difficulty, such as set mode, no Dynamax, and no items during battle. I also allow gifts and static encounters on my team, but only if these encounters are the first encounter I get on a route. Okay, so far so good, but Sword has some differences that make it require its own special Nuzlocke rules. The next thing to figure out is how to handle the fact that Pokemon mostly appear as sprites in the game world, as opposed to random encounters. Other Nuzlockers usually handle this by forcing themselves into a random grass encounter, encountering the first Pokemon they see, or just running around with a blindfold until I run into something. I decided to do this a little differently, and just decided to let myself choose the first Pokemon I run into. If I'm chased down by a Pokemon before I can find something else, I'm stuck with that encounter. But most of the time this effectively made me choose what encounter I wanted on each route, based on what Pokemon I like or what I thought would be best for the next portion of the game. On one hand, this makes the game easier, since it allows me to have a more diverse party, but on the other hand, it also made me think really carefully about what Pokemon would be useful to me in a certain moment, and gave me another way to strategically plan for my run. There are pros and cons to this method, but I liked it and feel comfortable with it. The next rule to figure out is how to deal with the wild area. A lot of Nuzlockers for this game usually decide to treat each region of the wild area as a separate area, but I once again did a bit of a different take on this, giving me one encounter in the wild area every time I beat a gym leader. I think this worked out really well, and since it gave me a reward for beating a hard boss battle, and since I could search out what Pokemon I wanted, I was given a really interesting decision to make every time. It also made the wild area much easier to keep track of, since I didn't need to remember if I'd caught a Pokemon in each part of the area. It also kept me visiting the wild area throughout the game, which was really nice. I loved that place, and I'm glad I could have a use here. The last rule modification I made to this game, and the one I think that really made it work for me, was limiting the number of Pokemon I could have in my party at any singular time in the game. When I was playing Pokemon Sword, one thing I noticed that I never really noticed before in any other Pokemon game, is that nobody other than the champion has a full team. In fact, barely anyone has 5 Pokemon, and only a few trainers have 4. I've since looked through other games and found this trend is relatively consistent in most Pokemon games, but I particularly noticed it in Sword because the EXP share makes it really dumb to not train a full team of 6 Pokemon. That's just sacrificing experience. While I was frustrated at first, I turned this into an opportunity, limiting myself to 3 Pokemon in my party up until Nessa, then allowing myself up to 4 until Opal, 5 in between Opal and the champion, and then gave myself permission to use a 6th Pokemon once I reached Leon. I still allowed myself to catch more Pokemon than this. I could swap in and out Pokemon in my party anytime, but if I ever got above the Pokemon cap, I'd immediately have to send one to my PC. This rule change helped temper the power of the EXP share tremendously, while also helping the battles feel more fair to me, since I would never have more Pokemon than the bosses I faced on my journey. So to summarize, we have these rules. First catch on each route, nicknames, fainting equals deathbox, 1 wild area catch after each gym leader, Pokemon party cap that increases over time, no Dynamaxing, no items during battle, and set mode. Now that this introduction's out of the way, let's do this. I'm super excited for this run, and immediately decided to start off with Scorbunny. I think all the starters are pretty solid in this game, but Scorbunny is definitely going to be a star player. After a misclick, I accidentally forget to name my cute soccer prodigy, but later name him Scorch off the suggestion of a friend. I crush Hop, impressing him with my knowledge of super effective hits, then off we go. After an adventure where we see some very big doggos in some haunted woods, we are off and ready to catch more Pokemon. I catch a Dorzawulu and run away the Nickit. I give myself 1 encounter in the wild area as soon as I get there, and I find a Stuffle, thinking it might help later down the line against Nessa's Dreadnought. I enter in the battle against the wild bear without healing first, a bad idea already, and then get hit by a Leer in a payback, dropping Scorch to 2 health. Thankfully, I switch to Runaway and am able to catch my 4th Pokemon without any losses. I name the Stuffle Care Bear, and since I have 4 Pokemon at this point, I send Dorbs to the box, where he lives out the rest of the run peacefully. I also catch a Galarian Slowpoke who does nothing during the run, and a Gossifleur named Flower Power, who I'm planning on making my secret weapon against Nessa. I swap out Runaway, making my team Flower Power, Care Bear, and Scorch heading into the first Bede fight. Scorch has gotten to level 18 and has evolved into a Raboot, so I'm pretty confident he can handle this entire fight. Bede leads Solosis, so I start off with Facade, which deals over half its health. In return, Bede uses Endeavor. With my level advantage, I was pretty confident the Scorch could handle any attacking moves from this Solosis. But Endeavor works a bit differently. The move brings the opponent's HP down to the user's HP, and since Solosis has a low HP stat and had taken a hit, it brought Scorch down to 10 health. Scorch still outspeeds and KOs Solosis the next turn, but this is my ace and my starter. He can't do one-hit KO Bede's next Pokemon, and I really can't let him die. Bede brings in Gothita, and I switch into Flower Power, who loses attack and defense from Gothita's Tickle. After another Tickle, Razor Leaf is doing next to no damage, and then Gothita hits a Psybeam and confuses Flower Power. Thankfully, Flower Power breaks out of it and hits Sing, and I use the opportunity to switch into Care Bear, who takes out Gothita, albeit at a cost of lowered stats going into his ace, Hatina. I switch back into Flower Power, since Regenerated healed it up. He barely survives 2 confusions to attack with Sing, only to miss. I switch back in Care Bear, who sacrifices himself in order to deal enough damage to allow Reboot to get the finishing blow. I survived that battle, but it was way harder than it should have been. I could point to the missed Sing or Psybeam confusion as luck not being in my favor here, but the truth is I underestimated him, not coming into this fight with a good plan and getting punished for it. I could have easily lost the run with slightly worse RNG. This also shows how the limit of 3 Pokemon can make things pretty difficult in the early game, so I probably would have been fine with a Nickit and Wooloo in my party. But they weren't, which means my rules are working exactly as intended. And Care Bear is dead. I refill the hole in my party with Sonic the Roggenrola, since he's going to play an important role for fighting Kabu, is a useful backup against Milo, and he's the only member of the box I'm planning on using long term right now. I get to the Grass Gym and try to train up Flower Power there, figuring he won't be at much risk since grass resists itself. During a fight with a gym trainer, I get distracted by my kitty Celestia, and she convinces me to let her take over as streamer, conquering my streamer chair from me. Unfortunately, Celestia's knowledge of Pokemon type advantages are lacking, as she seems to forget that Oddish are in fact poison types, and that my grass type is in trouble. 1 acid from an opposing Oddish later, and Flower Power is gone. Taken from us because of 1 dumb mistake. This one sucked. Looking back at the footage, I didn't even get unlucky. I left Flower Power in against not 1 but 2 Oddishes, and the first one just never used acid. I didn't need to use Flower Power here. I had 2 other Fire-type Pokemon on my team that could have stomped these trainers into oblivion. This was probably the dumbest mistake of the run, and easily the most preventable loss. However, this death might also have saved the run. See, the thing about Flower Power is that he was never actually a very good Pokemon, and Celestia knew that I was playing suboptimally. Scorch swept Milo's entire team, he wasn't a problem, and that gave me a Wild Area encounter. I knew I wanted to get a Pokemon that could help against Nessa, who I'm seriously scared of right now. Looking through the Wild Area options, 1 Pokemon stood out to me. I didn't like it, and it felt super wrong, but I knew it was the only way. Enter Murderer, the Oddish. Yes, the same Pokemon that killed Flower Power is back on my side, ready to prove he's better than Flower Power, and, well, he just is. At level 21, he evolves into Bloom, and with the Sunstone, I can immediately change him into a Vileplume. An incredibly bulky tank with healing moves, status moves, and a great defensive typing. In previous generations, using a stone this early is a difficult decision, because Pokemon don't learn moves after they evolve via stone. For some reason, Sword decided to throw this all out the window and make stone evolutions learn pretty much every move in their move pool via the Move Tutor, which is accessible at every Pokemon Center. If I do any future runs, I think I'm going to put limits on this mechanic, because it's straight up broken. Instead of any regular mid-game moves, this level 21 fully statted Pokemon can learn Giga Drain, Acid, Sleep Powder, Aromatherapy, Toxic, Moonblast, Grassy Terrain, Moonlight, Growth, and Petal Dance, while switching between these moves whenever I wanted to. My main set that I used for most of the run was Giga Drain, Acid, Sleep Powder, and Moonblast, which is amazing by itself, but the fact it has so many options for tougher battles is actually insane. Despite being 3 levels lower than Nessa's ace, Vileplume manages to one-hit KO all of her Pokemon, earning us the 2nd gym badge. With Nessa beaten, I can now travel with 4 Pokemon in my party, and in celebration of that, I add on Rending the Arrokuda, a frail water type with good attack and Aqua Jet. I also bring out Farfetch'd, a Farfetch'd who's been dunked on by Game Freak for too long, deciding to grow huge muscles, evolve, and become a legitimately good Pokemon. Nuzlocke really make you appreciate Pokemon that grow up and hit their final form quickly. Sirifetch'd may not be the best long-term Pokemon out there, but throw it against a bunch of not fully evolved Pokemon, it's going to be a consistent performer in almost every situation. In a decision that boggles the mind of current me that I completely forgot about before editing this video, I decided that training up Murderer before a Fire-type gym is too risky, and I sit him in the box for a bit while I train up Rending, Sonic, Buffetch, and Scorch. This decision proves to be a poor one in the very next battle, as Bede is waiting for me in the Galar Mines, hungry to feast on the souls of my Pokemon once more. I start the battle against him with Rending, and he does some damage with a bite before getting one hit KO'd by a Psyshock from Solosis. This death was totally preventable. I didn't feel as bad about this one as I did about some of the others because I didn't really need Rending, but I also never really needed to put Rending in such a perilous situation. I think what might have happened is that, until I did research for this script, I just assumed that Arrokuda and Barraskewda were the same Pokemon. I honestly don't think I realized this was an evolutionary line, and just kinda thought that this was the Basculin of Gen 8, so I underestimated its damage output. Oops. At least the rest of the fight goes well, as Rending's sacrifice did enough damage to Solosis that Scorch was able to take it out without taking an Endeavor this time. Scorch is then able to take out the rest of Bede's team with no more losses. This was a loss, but nothing I can't recover from. The more concerning thing here is Bede's developing a taste for my blood. For those keeping count, Bede has killed 2 of my Mons now, while the rest of the game has killed 1. With Kabu coming up, I decided to keep Murderer benched in favor of Dreadnought Captain Roberts, but I didn't really need to. I caught Curry the Sizzlipede in the Fire Gym, and then Sonic, now a Carkle equipped with leftovers, destroyed Kabu's team in a volcanic rage. 3 gym badges down. After Kabu, the trainers start getting a bit more intense, and I put Sonic back in the box in favor of Steelefant, a Koofant I caught in the wild area. Steel is a great typing, and while I'm a little concerned because the next gym is a fighting one, my other options are also weak to fighting, and I think it will help in the average battles more than my other choices will. I'm also thinking that Steelefant will do well against a Fairy Gym, and that I should start training it now for Opal. Everything goes smoothly up until Bea, but I'm a bit scared of her since she has 4 fully evolved fighting types, each one with monstrous attack stats, backed up by a Gigantamax Machamp. Murderer is amazing, but if my team were to fight straight up against that, there's no way I'd come out without casualties. When trying to figure out how to beat this monstrosity, I took a look at Murderer's moveset, and realized just how broken the move relearner is when it comes to stone evolutions. Bea's first Pokemon is Hitmontop, knowing Triple Kick, Quick Attack, Counter, and Revenge, none of which can really hurt Murderer due to poison-resistant fighting-type attacks. So for this battle, I changed up Murderer's moveset to Growth, Sunny Day, Moonlight, and Moonblast. Then I set up the Sun against Hitmontop, alternated Growth and Moonlight to get to +4 special attack, set up the Sun again to double my speed, and hit 4 Moonblasts to 1-hit KO every single Pokemon on Bea's team. Cheese for the win, and the Force Gym badge is ours with no losses. The next gym leader is Opal, so I used my next catch in the wild area to catch a Toxel, which I think will be useful after Evolve. I like Toxicity's design, typing, and ability, and I'm looking forward to using one this run. My Toxel, which I named Amped, is caught at level 29, so I just need 1 level to evolve it, which should be a piece of cake, right? Well, the next trainer I fight is Bede. As he sees me, his fangs start to salivate at the sight of fresh meat, sending out Duosion while I send out a level 32 Steelefant, a Pokemon also 2 levels away from evolution. Stomp does about a third to Duosion, while Bede fires back with a Psyshock that does just about as much in return. I use another Stomp before Bede uses Reflect, which doubles his team's physical defense. Because of the Reflect, Duosion survives my third Stomp, leaving both Pokemon with low health. I try to stall out the Reflect by using Dig, which proves to be a disastrous decision. Bede uses my first Dig turn to heal Duosion with the Super Potion, which allows Duosion to survive the Dig with plenty of HP left. I watch helplessly as Steelefant barely does any damage before Psyshock kills him. This is bad. Bede struck again, and I haven't even taken out a single Pokemon yet. I send out Scorch, who deals a little damage with Flame Charge while Bede sets up a light screen. Thankfully, the Reflect wears off at this point, which allows Scorch to KO the Duosion next turn. Bede's next Pokemon is Gothita. I go for a Headbutt instead of a Flame Charge, hoping for the flinch, but it doesn't happen as we trade damage. I go back to Flame Charge the next turn, as Gothita hits Scorch with Fake Tears, reducing Scorch's special defense by 2 stages. One more Flame Charge takes out the Gothita, and Bede has just 2 Pokemon remaining. His next Pokemon is Ponyta, and with the -2 special defense, I decide to switch out Scorch to Murderer. Ponyta's Psybeam confuses Murderer, so I switch back, taking another Psybeam and putting Scorch at half health. Flame Charge deals almost half damage as Ponyta uses Agility to boost its speed. Next turn, Ponyta uses another Psybeam, taking Scorch down to 25 health, while Scorch gets off a good roll on Flame Charge and KOs Ponyta. Bede's last Pokemon is Hatchrim, and my team is in trouble. At this point, someone is almost certainly going to die. There's just not enough damage for my team to one-hit KO it, and it probably deals enough damage to KO everyone back at the health we're at, with the possible exception of Murderer, who's probably 2-hit KO'd. With a heavy heart, I sacrifice Toxel, who gets knocked out by a Psybeam so Murderer can save the day. Murderer lands a Sleep Powder, and 2-hit KOs it with Giga Drain, getting us barely out alive. Chairman Rose, disgusted with Bede's insatiable bloodlust, disqualifies him from the League Challenge, but it's too late. He's now killed 4 of my Pokemon. Every battle I have against this guy is a bloody mess, and all of it is my fault for underestimating him. I'm making really good plans against the gym leaders, but I keep underestimating this horrific Murderer. I was even making fun of him at the beginning of the run, but now I'm just terrified of him, and feel like I'm seeing him around every corner. And to make things even worse, this battle really destroyed my entire plan against Opal, as I lost a Poison type and a Steel type who were both on the cusp of evolution. I'm gonna need a new plan for her. I go back to what's comfortable, putting Sonic and Buffetch back on the team to complement Murderer and Scorch. Then I march onwards. I start the Fairy Gym before realizing you have to fight all the trainers in the gym in a row without healing, which is actually pretty scary for this Nuzlocke. Scorch beats up the first trainer by himself, evolving into a Cinderace at the end of the battle. This is awesome, not just because of the stat boost, but because he learns Pyro Ball, a base 120 power stab physical fire type move with 90% accuracy, which is a serious upgrade on Flame Charge and Headbutt in terms of potential damage it can do. The accuracy is a little concerning, but the power is more than worth the trade. With Pyro Ball and Scorch's newfound power, the second trainer goes down without much of a fight, but Scorch is in the yellow now. I'm a little afraid of losing Scorch, so I switch into Murderer to take out the next trainer's Mogrim, but then after Mogrim, a Gardevoir comes in. Gardevoir is pretty bad for my team, with stab psychic moves to threaten Murderer. I really don't want to lose Murderer, so I send in Sonic, the least valuable member of my team, in an attempt to damage the Gardevoir enough so that somebody else can KO it. To my surprise, Gardevoir uses Charm, then Reflect, then Mystical Fire and Dazzling Gleam. Apparently this thing doesn't know Psychic. Thinking Scorch might be safe as a result, I switch it in, but a Dazzling Gleam brings it so low it can't stay in without risking death anymore. I go back to Murderer, who takes a ton of damage from a Mystical Fire, getting it into kill range. With a heavy heart, I go back to my plan of sacrificing Sonic. Soon, Sonic lies dead, but it did enough to bring the Gardevoir down to low health, letting Buffetch get its time to shine, finishing it off with First Impression. Thankfully, that was the last of the gym trainers, but my team is in trouble. I'm stuck in this gym, I can't get out, I only have 3 Pokemon alive, I feel like I can't access the BZ, though on reflection I'm not 100% sure about that, and Opal is terrifying. Murderer's Poison type should give us an advantage here, but there are some problems. Opal's team is Weezing, Mawile, Togekiss, and Gigantamax Alchemy. Murderer's best stab move is Venoshock, which is not an amazing move, is neutral against Weezing and does nothing to Mawile. Togekiss also knows Air Slash, which will hit Murderer super effectively. Scorch is actually really strong against this gym, hitting Mawile super effectively while resisting stab fairy moves, but it's not strong enough to take on everything by itself. Mawile's Intimidate makes it hard to pull off Scorch Sweep, and Togekiss can hit Scorch for super effective damage with Ancient Power. Buffetch is the worst member of our trio here since it's a fighting type, so it takes super effective damage from Fairy Stab. I have taught it Steel Wing though, so it can at least do some damage. I was going to try and abuse changing Murderer's moveset for this, but I can't even get back to the Pokemon Center to get to the move relearner. If I'm doing this, I'm doing this battle the hard way. With limited options, I formulate my strategy here. I teach Scorch Sunny Day and give him a Heat Rock so it lasts 8 turns instead of 5, use all my rare candies on Murderer to get him to level 39, then I go in and hope for the best. Not the most elaborate plan ever, and if I were to redo this I would probably give these rare candies to Scorch, but it's what I came up with given the resources I had. I lead Scorch against Weezing and use Sunny Day, getting hit by a Sludge and getting poisoned first turn. Not a good start. The mechanic to this gym is that sometimes Opal will ask you a question. If you answer the questions right, you get a stat boost. If you answer them wrong, your opponent gets a stat boost. I'm not really a fan of this mechanic here, but I also don't want to lose, so I answered the first question right, getting a speed boost that really doesn't matter, because I'm faster already. I was hoping the Sun-boosted Pyro Ball would knock out the Weezing, but it doesn't because massive physical defense, and the Weezing hits another Sledge, putting me down to 27 health. I go for Flame Charge next because of its accuracy, and thankfully Weezing goes down. 1 Pokemon out, 13 health remaining. Togekiss comes out next, and there is only one move I can make to win this battle. I use Pyro Ball to take it out, sacrificing Scorch in the process. Poison did 14 damage last turn, so it was 13 health. Well, there's nothing I can do. Pyro Ball hits, and in the sun it one-hit KOs Togekiss while I regretfully say bye to my starter. Until he levels up, gaining 3 health, surviving the poison at 2 HP. Scorch lived. I sacrificed him, thinking it was a 100% chance he would die, and he just kept on going. Way to go, buddy. We might actually have a chance now. Opal sends out Mawile against an intimidated 2 HP poisoned Scorch, and I carefully weigh my options. Pyro Ball would KO the Mawile, but Scorch can't pull off this same miracle a second time. Mawile's moveset isn't that good, and while Murderer can't do much to it, it also can't do much to Murderer. Its only Fairy-type move is also special and low base power, which means that Sirifetch'd might actually be able to survive a hit or two, while hitting it back fairly hard with Fighting-type moves. The safest way to win the battle is to sacrifice Scorch, but suddenly I think I can do this without sacrificing my starter, and I go for it. I switch to Murderer, who takes a crunch really well. Mawile gets off an Iron Defense boost before Murderer puts her to sleep, then I switch into Buffetched. While the Iron Defense boost would normally be really bad here, Sirifetch'd Leak is a special item that allows it to get critical hits more often, which bypasses the defense increases that Mawile just got. Mawile wakes up turn 1, but Buffetch takes the crunch really well, and then telling Opal that she's 16 gives Sirifetch'd an attack boost. Rock Smash does neutral damage because of the secondary steel typing, and with a critical hit, Sirifetch'd manages to actually take it out. Suddenly only Alchemy is left, and we still have a pretty healthy Murderer in the back. We're getting out of here. I play this one more safely, keeping Sirifetch'd in to waste the first turns of Dynamax with Detect. Then I use Steel Wing, hoping to deal damage and sacrifice Sirifetch'd. To my surprise, the Steel Wing crits and comes so close to one-shotting, but it doesn't quite get there. I wave goodbye to my buff duck, and Murderer finishes off the Alchemy, giving me the 5th gym badge. I'm battered and bruised, but I'm alive. I still have my best 2 Pokemon with me. My dumb decisions to bring unevolved Pokemon into the battle against Bede nearly killed the run, but I can still press on with my quest to become a Pokemon Master. After beating the most terrifying trainer I've faced so far this run, I'm able to keep 5 Pokemon in my party. Unfortunately, with most of my higher level Pokemon dead, there's a pretty significant level gap between my 2 good Pokemon and the rest of my team. Fortunately, my rules give me a chance to rebuild, starting with another wild area encounter. Man, I love these rules. They help smooth out the process so much. I pick up a level 34 Araquanid from the wild area, who I name Mantis, after one of my friends who routinely destroys me in Pokemon battles when we fight in various draft leagues have been in. This water spider is slow, very specially bulky, and hits hard using water-type attacks thanks to its ability. Water Bubble is unique to this evolutionary line, halving the damage taken from fire attacks, making Mantis immune to burns, and also doubling the power of all of its water-type attacks. It's a good fit for my team. Its bug typing should be good against the Dark Gym, and its water typing gives me a Grass Water Fire core in Murderer Scorch Mantis. The only downside, which I found out after catching her, is that Mantis doesn't get any physical water moves until it learns Liquidation at level 50, so until then I'm stuck using either Bubble Beam or Dive from the team. Hop is my next fight, and even though he is the first opposing trainer with 5 Pokemon in the game, he goes fine. I pick back up Dread Pirate Roberts and a pseudo-looter named No Pressure from the PC and face him. Scorch takes out Trevenant and Snorlax, Murderer takes out Voltant, Roberts gets in on the action against Heatmore, then Murderer and Scorch team up to get rid of Rillaboom. The next route I get cornered between a Wild Liepard and Team Yell, which just proves that you don't choose your cat chooses you. In this case, I name him Kit, and replace Roberts. Liepard is not a great Pokemon stat-wise, but it does have a lot of priority moves and clever tricks I can use in case of an emergency. Sucker Punch could help me get an emergency kill on a fast Pokemon when nothing else can do it. Kit is an annoyer instead of a heavy hitter, and has the potential to bail me out of bad situations. With these 2 encounters, my team is starting to catch up in level to my main Pokemon. Neat! On the next route, I try to sneak through it to catch a Phalanx, since having a fighting type on my team would be great against the Rock and Dark type gyms coming up next. Unfortunately, I accidentally run into a Rufflet, so I capture it instead. Rufflet isn't a great Pokemon for me. Since it's a Gen 5 Pokemon, it doesn't evolve until the ridiculously late level of 54, and that's pretty far off. He's also weak to Rock, which isn't great for the next gym. He is level 40 though, so I catch him, name him America, give him an Eviolite, and kick out Sudowoodo. If it survives until 54, it can be a pretty useful Pokemon, but until then he's not going to be all that great. Even if my team isn't exactly what I want it to be, I have recovered from the Opal disaster now, having 5 Pokemon between levels 36 and 41. Things are looking up again. Everything is going really well until suddenly I encounter colleagues Allison and Jordan. Double battles are always scary in Nuzlocke, and it seems like in every game there are 1 or 2 double battles that just come out of nowhere and become massive boss fights if you don't know what's coming. In this case, Allison and Jordan lead with Hippowdon and Excadrill, which is a viable lead in competitive Pokemon. See, Hippowdon has the ability Sandstream, which creates a sandstorm immediately to start the battle. Fighting in a sandstorm is annoying by itself. It damages all non-ground rock and steel types, while giving a special defense boost to rock types. Excadrill is a very powerful Pokemon with middling speed and decent bulk, but it has the ability Sand Rush, which doubles its speed in sand. Excadrill goes from being moderately slow to the fastest Pokemon in the field. Hippowdon is a massive threat in itself, and keeping everyone alive in a double battle is extremely challenging because you can't predict nearly as reliably as you could in a single battle. Caught off guard, I start the battle with Kit and Scorch. Kit is actually really strong in double battles because it knows Fake Out, which has priority the first turn you're out and flinches an opponent without fail. Unfortunately, I can't go for this and a Pyro Ball of Scorch, because both Excadrill and Hippowdon could theoretically kill Scorch with one super effective move. Excadrill outspeeds Scorch in Sand, and Scorch can't kill Hippowdon in one hit. I realize I can't keep Scorch in, so I delay, using Fake Out and Excadrill, and switch Scorch to America, who's immune to any theoretical ground-type attacks coming its way. My plan works. America is immune to a Sand Tomb, and I get to turn 2. The next turn I get a critical Sucker Punch on Excadrill, while taking a lot of damage to Rock Slide and Crunch. America's Eviolite comes in clutch, saving it from a very high risk of death that turn. I go for a second Sucker Punch on the Excadrill to get rid of it, and switch out America to Murderer, who tanks a Rock Slide really well. The biggest threat in this battle is gone, but this battle is not over yet, as Lucario comes out next, another fast Pokemon with high attacking stats. I switch out Kit for Mantis, who resists both of Lucario's stab moves, and go for a Giga Drain on Hippowdon, hoping to take it out while restoring health. It works, and Berserker comes in to replace Hippowdon the next turn. I switch out to Scorch and try and Sleep Powder Lucario, hoping that because Scorch resists Steel, he can come in safely despite being a relatively frail Pokemon. I get lucky as Scorch takes a Fake Out and Metal Claw without much issue, and Murderer puts the Lucario to sleep. The Sandstorm subsides too, and at this point I start to relax a bit. Scorch takes Berserker out with a Pyro Ball, then takes Lucario out next turn. I think I played this battle pretty well to get out of here unscathed, but I also got fairly lucky. If the AI had gone for different moves, or if I had not gotten that crit with Kit's Sucker Punch, this could have been much worse for me. On Route 9, I catch a Marianne and name it Smogon. A level later, Smogon evolves into a Tuxpex, which is an incredibly tanky water poison type with Recovery and Baneful Bunker, which allows it to be nearly invincible to a whole lot of opposing Pokemon while whittling them down with status. Since it was introduced, Toxapex has dominated Smogon's OU competitive scene for its insane bulk, and here it's going to make a lot of the late game fights easier for me. Unfortunately, it has Limber as its ability instead of Regenerator, which definitely sucks, but even without a DOP ability, it's still going to be my MVP from here on out. I bench America in favor of Smogon and press forward. Next up is the Rock-type gym, but Smogon sweeps through Gordy's entire team. I misplayed and left myself vulnerable to a critical hit G-Max Vocalith, but it didn't happen and we're moving on. I celebrate my victory by expanding my Smogon improved roster with a Corviknight from Wild Area, which I name New Smogon. Corviknight is basically Skarmory on steroids, having the same overpowered Steel Flying typing, with better stats in every category except for defense, and even that is mitigated by its massive 100 base HP stat. Corviknight can only learn Roost as an Egg move sadly, but even without healing it's still a great Pokemon. With the team's Cinderace, Vileplume, Araquanid, Tuxapex, and Corviknight, this team is looking incredibly strong. I crush Hop and move on to the worst designed town in the entire Pokemon franchise. Okay, seriously, can we talk about this town for a second? It's a literal straight line. They wasted a lot of good art assets on Spikemas to do absolutely nothing with it. My newer team members destroy piers without much issue. The game hurries me out of Spikemas so it can pretend the town never existed, only to distract me with a cutscene that nobody ever made. My god, this part of the game sucks. Why, Game Freak? Why? But cutscenes that don't exist don't influence the playability of a Nuzlocke, so we press onwards to Raihan, who is next to nothing in between. Raihan characterizes himself as a dragon gym leader, but he's really a weather gym leader. He's a bit more dangerous than the last two leaders. His gym is all double battles, which is dangerous in a Nuzlocke. The gym trainers go down without much issue, and I challenge Raihan, fairly confident with my overpowered team. He begins with Gigalith and Flygon, a pretty scary combination that immediately summons Sand to annoy my team with. I go with Murderer and Smogon, using Moonblast and Liquidation to get rid of Flygon first turn, only taking a little damage in the process. He sends out Sandaconda next, which goes down to a Giga Drain, but not before doing a lot of damage to Smogon with Earth Power. Gigalith uses Rock Blast, which was scary, but thankfully targets Murderer instead of Smogon, and I'm okay. Last up is Duraludon. I attack Gigalith with a Giga Drain while switching out Smogon to New Smogon. Duraludon Gigantamaxes and attacks New Smogon for a lot of damage, while Gigalith barely survives a Giga Drain. I finish up the Gigalith next turn, and only the Duraludon is left. Unfortunately, it doesn't go down as easily, as Gigantamax doubles its health, and its Steel Dragon typing makes it resist almost every attack I can throw at it. The next turn, Duraludon uses a Max Knuckle to further boost its attack stat, while I chip away at it with a Giga Drain in revenge, bringing it down to half health. Fearing for New Smogon's life, I switch out to Mantis and try to put her to sleep with Murderer. This decision was nearly tragic, as Ironhead dealt way more damage than I expected it to, nearly killing Murderer, and my Sleep Powder misses, putting me in a really tough situation. I swap out Murderer to Scorch and use Dive with Mantis, praying I can survive one more turn. Thankfully, I do, and Pyro Ball manages to take out the Duraludon the next turn. 8 gym badges down, and everyone is still alive. I arrive in Winden City with no losses. My team is really crushing through all the random trainers at this point. I learned there are 4 trainers this year who managed to get all 8 gym badges, and only one of us can make it to the coveted Gym Leaders tournament. There's me, Marnie, Hop, and some random unnamed person who must be pretty pathetic because he loses to Hop in the first round. I face Marnie, who I'm not too worried about. I beat her pretty handily outside of Spikemas after all. Marnie's battle theme proves to be better than her actual team, and while I'm scared by her hitting a critical hit G-Max Snooze against New Smogon, he survives with 11 HP, and I'm able to beat her with no losses. Next up in the tournament is Hop, who sadly will never become as good a trainer as his older brother. I know, it stings, but Wooloo and Pincurchin are just bad, and really holding him back from being as strong as he could be. I crush his team, go through a really weird filler arc, and suddenly I'm ready to go join the Gym Leaders tournament. I step into the ring ready to fight Nessa, and a scene from my worst nightmares plays out in front of me. Bede is watching me on television, and his eyes sparkle with bloodlust. He's hungry, seeing that I've grown too strong in his absence, and feels an insatiable urge to kill. I back away, trying to say no, trying to express that he was expelled from the League Challenge for a reason, that he has no right to be here, that he's a bloodthirsty murderer who will kill your loved ones and laugh. But it doesn't stop him. Nobody stops him. Opal has vouched for him, and Leon reveals he's also a sadistic monster by allowing this fight to continue. Bede says if he loses, he will retire being a trainer, but we all know that's a lie. I have no choice but to defend myself. He starts out with Mawile while I use Scorch, and one Pyro Ball puts it away. Next up is Gardevoir, who takes a Pyro Ball to the face thanks to Mawile's Intimidate. Thankfully, all the Gardevoir does is Calm Mind, and Scorch is able to take it out without getting hit. Galarian Rapidash comes out, getting off a Psycho Cut but falling to Scorch's Pyro Ball in short order. Only Hatterene remains, but this one is scary. It's going to Dynamax, it has an insane special attack stat, and Psychic Fairy Fire coverage hits every Pokemon on my team either with stab or super effective damage. I pivot around its Dynamax turns, but then after the Dynamax is over, Hatterene sets up a Calm Mind, tanks a Liquidation from Mantis in the Sun, and KOs it back with a Psychic. Scorch takes revenge, killing Hatterene, but I've lost my 5th Pokemon to Bede this run. Every time I battle this guy, another Mon dies. Mantis helped us survive the Dynamax turns, then made the sacrifice to help us get past this mass murderer, but it wasn't enough to save her life. Instead of telling Bede that he should be locked up forever, the crowd seems to enjoy this senseless bloodshed, and Opal takes him on as the next Fury-type gym leader. It seems fitting that my 2 biggest enemies this game are teaming up. Unfortunately, I can't worry about that right now. I need to focus on how to beat Nessa. I take out Kunoichi the Sneasel from the box, who I named, unfortunately, before I checked his gender. He's not going to be much use against Nessa, but he's a decently high level, and if I can evolve him into a Weavile, then I can have a fast physical attacker who can help me take out Psychic and Dragon-type Pokemon. I incorrectly think I'm stuck here until I win this tournament, so I go fight Nessa. I lead Murderer, hoping he can sweep through Nessa's Pokemon like he did in our first gym fight. She sends out a Golisopod first, which makes a quick tactical retreat after getting hit with a Giga Drain. She sends out Pelipper next, which Smogon can deal with. New Smogon takes out Barraskewda and Golisopod, and Murderer takes out the rest of her team. This is a pretty easy win. Bea is next. She's pretty scary, but my team is well equipped for this. Smogon, New Smogon, and Murderer all have typing advantages against fighting types, and Scorch deals a lot of damage with Pyro Ball. Mantis would be nice here, but isn't essential. She begins with Hawlucha while I send out New Smogon. High Jump Kick puts New Smogon into crit range, so I switch out to Original Smogon while Bea heals. Hawlucha starts using Bounce, allowing Smogon's Baneful Bunker to poison chip it away until it dies. Smogon also deals with Siri Fetched and Grapple Locked without too much issue, but Octolock dropped Smogon's defenses quite a bit, so I switch it out for when Phalanx comes out. Murderer beats the Phalanx, and now just Hermachamp is left. Hermachamp then can't really do anything to Smogon, and pretty soon I'm in the tournament finals with Raihan as my next opponent. Raihan has a weird team, but weird doesn't necessarily mean good. Smogon beats Torkoal and Turtonator, Murderer beats Goodra, and New Smogon beats Flygon. Dynamaxing Duraludon is a bit scary, but it doesn't really do too much damage to my tanks, and eventually it goes down. I'm now the Gym Leader champion. I get ready for the ultimate fight, and before we can begin, Chairman Rose gives the entire stadium a video call to let us know he just started the apocalypse. Agreeing to not let the entire world get wiped out, Leon and I agree to table our championship battle and focus on the plot, which I guess is the thing that's been happening in this game. I haven't really talked about it because this is the first time the player character actually interacts with it in a meaningful way. I'm pretty happy for the delay though. because it gives me time to get my team truly set up. Since I've made it to Leon, I can also finally add a 6th Pokemon in my party. I add Last Catch, a level 58 Golurk to my team, help Kunoichi evolve into a Weavile, and my team is finally perfect. When I try and stop the apocalypse, I quickly discover that Chairman Rose and I have some creative differences. He's pro-apocalypse, and I'm anti-apocalypse. Scorch and New Smogon make quick work of the Steel types, then Last Catch and Smogon distract Eternatus while a couple of legendary doggos stop the beast. I catch the legendary Maelstrom of Darkness inside a tiny ball, then place it into a computer, where it will stay for the rest of days. Pokemon technology is kinda scary if you think about it. After everything that's happened, all my near scrapes with death, I'm alive and with an incredible team. Only one trainer is left in my way, and he is an absolute monster. Leon is by far the best trainer in this region, and nobody else even comes close. He doesn't have any setup moves, but he makes up for that by having a ton of fast, powerful, immediate threats with insane type coverage. He hits fast, hits hard, and kills you until you're dead. If you somehow make it through his team, he has a Gigantamax Charizard waiting for you in the back, just ready to finish you off. This is not a battle I'm trying to win deathless. This is just a battle I'm trying to win, period. I honestly did not expect to make it this far, and I'm not expecting to win this battle, but I'm sure as heck going to try. I analyze the battle carefully, buy some TRs, assign my items, and try to come up with a plan that I think will win. I think I have one, but battles have a tendency to blow up the best laid plans in your face, so I'm still nervous. Let's do this. I start with my trusted ace Scorch, while Leon leads Aegislash. A King's Shield prevents my first Power Ball from hitting, but since Power Ball doesn't make contact, nothing happens. Then, the next turn I hit Aegislash with Power Ball, and with the extra damage boost from Life Orb, I one-hit KO it. 1 Mon down. Next up is Haxorus. Scorch can't deal with Haxorus directly, so I use U-turn, chipping it and summoning it out from New Smogon, who avoids an Earthquake. Haxorus switches to Outrage, which does some damage, but overall New Smogon tanks it really well. New Smogon hits back with a Brave Bird and a Steel Wing, knocking out the second threat. 2 down, 4 to go. Dragapult comes out next, and this one is the scariest member of his team for me. Dragapult is a very strong and very fast special attacker, with great coverage moves in Thunderbolt and Flamethrower. It hits every Pokemon I have either with a Stab Shadow Ball or a super effective move. If I try to be greedy here, I could lose the entire battle, so I let New Smogon give his life for the team. Next up, I send out Kunoichi. My Weavile is underleveled, slower, and can get one-shot by Flamethrower, but I have a plan. During my playthrough, I collected 2 Focus Sashes, which allow you to survive any attack at 1 HP, if you have full health when getting hit. This is an excellent item competitively, but in-game it has some problems, namely that this is a one-time use item, so I need to be very selective about when I use it. This champion battle, though, is definitely a place where using one is warranted. So Leon goes for the Flamethrower, getting Kunoichi down to 1 HP. Then I hit Dragapult with a super effective Icicle Spear, getting it down to the yellow. I then switch to Ice Shard, which frustratingly doesn't quite do enough to KO, before Dragapult kills my Weavile. This stings. I was really hoping Kunoichi would take that out, because now I'm stuck in a terrible position. I'm not sure if Leon is going to use a full restore, and Dragapult is a massive threat to all of my other Pokemon. I bank on Leon healing and have Last Catch use Ice Punch. Ice Punch does half after he heals, and then I go for another one. Dragapult uses a Shadow Ball, and I fear the worst, but thankfully the Assault Vest I put on Last Catch helps it survive a critical hit, and it takes out the dragon with a second Ice Punch. Leon's third threat is down, but not without casualties. He sends out Inteleon, which thankfully does not know an Ice-type move, so Murderer is a relatively safe switch. I decide to save Last Catch, and Murderer tanks a Snipe Shot reasonably well. Inteleon goes for a Dark Pulse, which does not flinch, allowing Murderer to kill the Inteleon with a Giga Drain. Fourth threat down. His fifth is Mr. Rhyme, an annoying Ice Psychic type that can beat everyone on my team other than Scorch. I want to get Scorch in, but switching on a Psychic could cost me the battle. I decide to sacrifice Last Catch in order to bring Scorch in safely, losing my third Pokemon this fight. Scorch hits a Pyro Ball, taking out Mr. Rhyme, and have gotten to Leon's Charizard. This thing Dynamaxes as I switch out to Smogon for the very first time in this battle. His Charizard gets huge, going on a tantrum, throwing rock after rock at my spiky Starfish. But by the time his energy runs out, Smogon is still there, regenerating all the damage he took with Recover. Leon goes for a Desperation Solar Beam without the sun, and Smogon takes it out with 2 liquidations. I've won! Leon's monster team lies shattered and broken, while the core of my team is still left standing at the end of the day. It wasn't a bloodless victory, but it was a victory. This champion fight is the best kind of battle you can have in a Nuzlocke, where you feel like your planning, strategy, and team really helped turn what would have likely been a loss into a win. Each one of my Pokemon made a significant contribution to the battle. Without putting a Life Orb on Cinderace, I may not have one-hit KO'd Aegislash, and without thinking to use my Focus Sash on Weavile or my Assault Vest on Golurk, and Dragapult may have crippled my team severely enough Charizard could sweep. If I had played things overly safe and sacrificed Golurk against Inteleon, I probably would have lost Murderer to Mr. Rhyme. There are so many what-ifs, but I'm reasonably proud of how I played that battle. I also realize I've not only beaten the game, but I've done it with my best Pokemon alive. I might be able to even play on to the post-game. I consider this run a success no matter what happens from here on out, but I'm curious how far I can go, so I decide I'm going to press on. I take a moment of silence for all the Pokemon that fell during the run, especially for the 3 that fell against Leon. New Smogon was instrumental at helping me through the late game, and while Kunoichi and Lasketch were only on the team briefly, the contributions they made against Leon were invaluable at helping us beat his scariest Pokemon. Scorch, Murderer, and Smogon, the 3 left standing, were all so valuable, each one MVP in so many fights in this game. This video is getting really long, so I'm not going to go into as much detail about the post-game as I did about the main game. Nuzlocking the post-game in Sword and Shield is really hard. It's not a long post-game per se, but there are constant traps and pitfalls here, and being forced into doing Dynamax raids against very strong Pokemon is terrifying. It might be relatively easy if you allow yourself Dynamax, but since I didn't, each Dynamaxed enemy is really scary. I allow myself 2 Wild Area encounters for beating a champion, because the Mon in my box aren't high enough level to help me do much anymore. I find Flashlight the Lantern and Wally the Gallade, then finish off my team with Fennel and Musharna from my box. Fennel is a little bit underleveled, but the rest of my team is pretty solid. I get pretty lucky in the post-game and don't suffer any more losses up until Swordward and Shieldbert, 2 wannabe anime protagonists, start thinking it's a good idea to Dynamax random Pokemon they find for fun. This is not a good idea, and when they set loose a wild giant Sarina, Murderer tries to stop it, only to get one-hit KO'd by a Max Mindstorm. This sucks. It's just so anticlimactic. Murderer started out as a criminal, but then became our most valuable team member for so long. He was so essential in so many battles for this team. And he just randomly gets one-shot by a wild Pokemon given a bit too much power. Scorch helped lead us to victory in that battle, and we managed to fend off some other Dynamax Pokemon without losing anyone. But then Swordward decided it would be a good idea to rampage a giant Haxorus. This is a really, really bad idea. Don't do this. Haxorus has an attack stat of 147, is notorious for being terrifying when angered, and knows Earthquake and Ironhead to deal with Steel and Fairy types respectively. It also knows Outrage, which, if I'm not mistaken, is not something you want a giant-sized dragon doing in the middle of a city. I start with Fennel, hoping to put it to sleep with a yawn, but I miscalculated. I should have used my second Focus Sash here, but I didn't, so the Haxorus one-shot him with a Max Whirlwind. Not learning my lesson, I sent out Wally, hoping to burn it with a Will-O-Wisp, and I got one-shot again by another Max Whirlwind. Flashlight came out and barely survived a critical hit Giga Impact, then used Icy Wind, getting a critical hit to deal some super effective damage while lowering its speed. Flashlight Volt switches out of there to get in Scorch while Haxorus recharges. I try for a Pyro Ball, and it does some decent damage despite being resisted, only to have Haxorus regain its speed and start outraging. I bounce and Haxorus max breaks, because apparently Outrage doesn't actually lock him into moves in this state. Huh, weird. Hex misses an Iron Tail, but then I miss a Pyro Ball, and Scorched Eye is fighting the beast. I send out Kid, hoping for a Fake Out flinch, not realizing that Fake Out doesn't actually flinch Dynamax Pokemon. So Kit dies for nothing. Desperate for damage, I send out Smogon, who uses Poison Jab, but gets 2-hit KO'd by Haxorus. Flashlight is my last Pokemon left, and I'm certain I'm gonna die. I go for an Icy Wind, but Haxorus moves first, uses Iron Tail, and Flashlight survives at 7 HP. In one final heroic act, Flashlight kills the rampaging beast, saving the town of Hamlock. Flashlight's heroism may have saved the town, but at this point I have nothing left. My entire team is dead aside from one level 62 Lantern. As I'm staggering, trying to process what just happened, trying to figure out how I went from on top of the world to barely having beaten a dragon, he finds me. The one who tormented me all game. The Psychic Turn Fairy user who kills every time he sees me. He finds me, weak, defenseless, and alone. My allies are dead, and it's hopeless. Flashlight tries his best to fight back, but alone he's completely helpless against Bede's team. He takes out 2 Pokemon before getting overrun by Galarian Rapidash. I fall to the ground as Bede feasts on my soul. The Haxorus was what really killed this run, but I like it this way. I think it's fitting that Bede managed to land the final blow, considering how much of a pain he's been, and how much he's been a constant thorn in my side. I ended up losing 23 Pokemon, 11 in the main game and 12 in the post-game. Of these 19 Pokemon, Bede killed 11, Leon killed 3, Haxorus 5, and the rest of the game 4. If we only count the main game, Bede killed Care Bear, Rending, Steelephant, Amped, and Mantis. Leon killed New Smogon, Kunoichi, and Lasketch. Opal and her cronies killed Sonic and Buffetched. Lastly, a random trainer in Milo's gym killed Flower Power. Let's give a moment of silence to those who were lost along the way. I've wanted to make a video about this Nuzlocke for a while now, but hadn't gotten around to it until now. I had a blast playing this Nuzlocke, and I think with this rule set I found a medium that's consistently challenging, engaging, doable, and also never really requiring me to grind against a wild Pokemon. I grinded against wild Pokemon twice in this game. Once to get Oddish 1 extra level so it could evolve into Vileplume before Ness's gym, and once to get Sneasel a level to evolve before the champion fight. That's it, and the difficulty level felt really on point the entire time. I also really like this rule set because of how deaths hurt, but didn't hurt so much that it ever felt unrecoverable. The Fairy Gym nearly killed me because I wasn't prepared against Bede, but after I lost half my team there, I was able to recover with the wild area encounters without grinding. Deaths made subsequent fights a lot tougher, and forced me to play way more carefully immediately afterwards, but if I could weather the storm, I knew I'd be okay eventually. Being able to choose my encounters was interesting. It definitely made the game a lot easier at times, but I definitely also wasn't invincible. I think whenever I play another Nuzlocke of Sword, I might make a rule that Pokemon I've used to a significant degree before in this game are off limits. This will really force me to adapt and try out as many team combinations as I can before I start running low on options. All in all, this was probably my favorite Nuzlocke run I've ever done. There were so many twists and turns, moments where I was humbled by lack of preparation, and moments where it felt impossible and I found a way through. I hope you enjoyed this run as much as I did, and I'd like to hear your own Nuzlocke experience in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.